everybody. So let's now proceed on Module 4. And this is all about physicochemical properties of drugs, particularly leads and also analogs. In discovering drugs and developing them, we need to have some properties to make them desirable. When we say desirable, magkaroon sila dapat ng magandang profiles to be able to have efficient delivery to the target system, providing an effect ultimately. Meron tayong four desirable properties by leads and also analogs to make them quote and unquote good agents in the future. Number one, we have bioavailability. Second is solubility. Third, structure. And finally, stability. So let's discuss them individually, starting with bioavailability. Bioavailability is defined as the amount or fraction of the drug that enters into the systemic circulation. In Tagalog, ang bioavailability, ito yung dami ng gamot na nakapasok sa ating sistema. Okay? Important ba ang pag-determine? Is it important to determine the amount of the drug that enters the blood? Yes or no? Will it determine the extent of activity by the drug? Yes, of course. That's why we need to identify bioavailability of the drug. For a compound to be suitable as a lead, it must be bioavailable, of course. However, we must realize that determining or conducting bioavailability studies is really tough. Tough hindi lang physically, but also financially. Pati na rin time, very time consuming siya. Okay? So, ang tendency dito is what if nag-invest ka ng oras ng pera in conducting bioavailability and it was negative? So parang malaking panghihinayang yon sa isang pharmaceutical firm. Thankfully, Lipinski and others or yung kasama niya mga researchers were able to come up with this guideline to be able to somehow identify if a drug would be likely orally bioavailable or not. So in short, ito yung parang first line na test or guideline na pwedeng gawin ng mga medicinal chemist to be able to check if the drug would be likely orally bioavailable. So that is called Lipinski's Rule of Fives. When we say Lipinski's Rule of Fives, hindi limang rules. Kasi makikita nyo sa slide, apat na rules lang yan, right? So it's not 5 rules, no. That's because, kaya siya Rule of Fives, the numbers indicated there are multiples of 5. Okay, multiples of 5. For example, molecular mass less than 500. So multiple of 5. Calculated value of log P is less than 5. So multiple of 5 na naman. Later we will discuss P, but for now, just write it muna. It means partition coefficient. Okay? It means partition. Okay? It means partition coefficient. So later, i-discuss natin ang partition coefficient. Okay? And then, there must be less than 10 hydrogen bond acceptor groups and then less than 5 hydrogen bond donor groups. So ito yung first line determinant ng mga scientists to test if the drug would be likely bioavailable, orally bioavailable. Okay? So paano natin malalaman if the test lead or yung potential drug will pass Lipinski's Rule of Fives? So ito yung ating specification. Any compound that fails to comply with two or more rules is unlikely to be orally bioavailable. So ang point, pagbagsak, okay? Or kapag hindi pumasok sa specification na to, bagsak siya. Okay? Yun yung ibig sabihin. Okay? First line lang siya. So kapag pumasa dito, may confidence na somehow yung mga pharmaceutical firms to really test the compounds sa in vitro and in vivo testing. Okay, so that's Lipinski's Rule of Fives. Nagets ba yung Lipinski sa bioavailability? Okay, good. Moving on, after natin sa bioavailability, let's have solubility. What's the importance of solubility, guys? Remember in our discussion sa Module 1, is it important for a drug to become an aqueous solution to promote absorption? Yes, very good. So that's why solubility must be determined. And aside from that, isipin nyo ha, aqueous solution siya in the GI tract to promote entry in the blood. But pagpasok sa blood, the drug must be lipophilic already to be able to cross the membrane. So in short, there must be a balance between water and lipid solubility kasi kailangan ng water solubility para ma-absorb sa ating systemic circulation. Para makapasok sa individual cells yung gamot, kailangan lipophilic naman siya. So there must be a balance. Okay? Most drugs are administered either as aqueous or solid preparations and so need to be water soluble. Now, ano yung mga means or ano yung usual means ng mga companies to be able to promote water solubility of drugs? Dito papasok ang conversion of drugs into their salt forms, a conversion of drugs into their salt forms. What do we mean by converting drugs into their salt forms? These are dosage or these are drug products containing, for instance, hydrochloride o kaya sulfate, phosphate, sodium, potassium. Di ba may mga ganong gamot? Di ba? Halimbawa, morphine sulfate, parang ganyan. So that means we are converting the drug into their salt forms because by converting these agents into their salt forms, magiging water soluble sila. Okay? So that's it. That's for water solubility. Now, paano naman malalaman kapag likely lipophilic yung gamot? The determinant being used or utilized is partition coefficient. So right now, let's talk about partition coefficient. Ang partition coefficient or P, in other references K, ay in other references pwede siyang K, partition coefficient is the ratio of the concentration of the drug in the oil phase and concentration of the drug in the water or aqueous phase. Again, we have concentration of the drug in the oil divided by concentration of the drug in the aqueous or water phase. So that's the formula of partition coefficient. So this is an in vitro test. In vitro meaning gumagamit ka lang ng mga glassware sa mga equipment. Okay? Often, sa oil, ang ginagamit ay octanol or N-octanol. Okay? Ito yung ginagamit. Okay, gumagamit tayo ng N-octanol or octanol sa oil phase. Okay? Now, how can we tell if the drug would be lipophilic based on partition coefficient? So it will depend on the result obtained. Okay? If your partition coefficient value is said to be high, what does it tell you? Anong ibig sabihin yan? Pag mataas ang partition coefficient, that means mas maraming gamot, again, mas maraming gamot ang sumasama sa oil. Okay? Pag mataas ang partition coefficient, mas maraming gamot ang sumasama sa oil. So pag mas maraming sumasama sa oil, anong ibig sabihin? Lipo o hydrophilic yung drug? Lipo, very good. Sorry. So kung lipo siya, ibig sabihin, lipophilic ang drug pag mataas ang value ng partition coefficient. Gets? Naintindihan? Okay. And on the other hand, syempre pag mababa, hydrophilic. Okay? That's partition coefficient. Next, after natin sa partition coefficient, under pa rin ang solubility. So para may idea kayo sa outline, partition coefficient ang i-discuss natin dito at BCS. So ngayon, proceed tayo sa BCS. Meron kayo sa notes yung BCS? Good. So second, we have BCS. BCS stands for Biopharmaceutical Classification System. What's the purpose or what's the importance of conducting or identifying the drug or lead under BCS? This is being developed to optimize the development of an orally administered dosage form. Guys, if we want to check if a drug is orally bioavailable, that would cost so much then. Okay? Marami ring gastos at tedious. So in BCS, this is somehow cheap, okay? Cheap and also easier means of predicting whether a drug would be orally available or pwede siyang gawing oral dosage form. Okay? But in this case, ang ginagamit natin is ruling based on the drug's permeability and not dissolution, solubility. Okay, so based on drugs, permeability, and solubility, in which we can classify drugs into 4 classes. In connection to that, let's have a table that would show the characteristics of four classes of drugs based on BCS. So in that case, please make a table and divide it into 3 columns. Okay? So meron tayong 4 na classes of drugs based on BCS. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. As I've mentioned, there are 2 determinants under BCS. Number 1, in terms of solubility. Okay, number 1 is in terms of solubility. And second, we have in terms of permeability. By the way, can you still follow me? Okay, type done if you're finished copying the table or making a table. Done? Okay, nice. So we have 4 classes, 1, 2, 3, and 4. How can we differentiate these classes? Okay? Ang characteristics lang naman nila, that is either high or low. So when I draw arrow up, it's high. And then low kapag arrow down. Okay? As simple as that. Una, for class 1 agents, ang solubility ng class 1 ay mataas, and then ang permeability niya mataas din. So both are high. Okay? That means to say, kung ang solubility niya ay mataas, mabilis siyang ma-dissolve and easily absorbed. And mataas ang permeability, so therefore, mabilis din siya makakapasok sa mga membranes ng cells sa iba't ibang katawan. Okay? So both are high. Question, kung both ay high, anong realization natin sa class 1? Very good agents ba siya na orally i-administer? Hmm? Uh, Good candidates ba as for oral dosage formulation? Yes, okay? Pag na-classify under class 1. Okay? Next, number 2. Pag class 2 naman, mababa ang solubility, pero mataas ang permeability. Okay? So again, mababa ang solubility, then mataas ang permeability. Later, magbibigay tayo ng mga examples ng class 2 at ano yung pwedeng gawin. Okay? And then class 3, we have mataas ang solubility, pero mababa ang permeability. Mataas ang solubility, then mababa ang permeability. At ang class 4, parehas mababa. Okay? Parehas mababa ang solubility at permeability. If a drug was classified under class 4, mahirap siyang gawing oral dosage forms unless tataasan mo talaga ang dose available. Okay? So class 4 yon. Challenging siyang gawing oral. So these are the different classes of drugs based on BCS or Biopharmaceutical Classification System. Now, ano yung easier way to memorize this? Kasi you need to memorize this para mas madali nyo masundan. Ganito yung palatandaan dyan. Isipin nyo na lang ha, when you write the table, di ba there are 4 classes. So isipin nyo for solubility, it begins with letter S. So isipin natin pag S, salitan. Pag sinabing salitan, decking, high, low, high, low. Gets nyo yung palatandaan? Salit. Okay, next. What about permeability? It starts with letter P. So isipin nyo lang pag P, partial. Partial means half. Okay, half. Ibig sabihin, half high, half low. That's it. Naintindihan? Partial. Okay, so wag yung kakalimutan yung mga classes at refer kayo dyan from time to time pag diniscuss natin individually ang mga classes. Pwede na po tayo sa individual classes. Okay, so start tayo. Class 1. Class 1 agents have high solubility and high permeability. Like what I said, these agents are well absorbed and are affected by limited set of interactions. That's why very good candidates sila as oral dosage forms. Examples are acetaminophen and also metoprolol. Next, class 2. Anong mataas sa class 2? S or P? O, choppy? Okay. So P at mababa ang S. So kung mababa ang S, mababa ang solubility niya, ano ang pwede magpatagal ng drug absorption? Solubility o permeability? Solubility. Kaya nakalagay dyan, rate limiting step ang dissolution. Pag sinabing rate limiting step or rate limit, That means the slowest step na pwedeng matapos. Okay? Slowest step in a series of process or series of kinetic process. Okay? So dissolution ang nagpapatagal. Absorption of this class is often enhanced in proportion to the fat content of the administered meal. So examples, you have griseofulvin and also digoxin. Next, class 3. Anong mataas sa class 3? S or P? Okay, S. Therefore, anong nagpapatagal? Ano ang rate limiting step sa class 3? Permeability. Very good. Permeation. Na-i-apply ba yung table kanina sa mga descriptions? Good. Examples, acyclovir and chloramphenicol. Lastly, both low ba ang class 4? Yes. So that's why they are undesirable to be formulated as oral dosage forms. However, makinig, nasabi ko to kanina, pwede pa rin. Okay? Kaya lang, it will take large doses para ma-facilitate ang sufficient amount ng drug that would be available in the systemic circulation. Examples are furosemide and also paclitaxel. Okay? So these are the classifications based on BCS. So all of these are related still to solubility. As you can tell, solubility and bioavailability are connected with one another. Tama ba? So bioavailability will determine the amount that will enter. Solubility is our determinant if makakapasok ba siya. So we have partition coefficient and also BCS. Are you ready sa structure? Okay, nice. Let's proceed to the structure. The structure of the drug determines its ability to bind to receptor and other targets. Question, agree ba kayo dito sa yung structure daw ng gamot ang magsasabi kung magko-complement daw siya doon sa target protein? Yes, right? Di ba nabanggit natin kahapon that in drug-target interaction, there must be a complementarity between the target site or the binding site and the binding group that a drug has. So na-discuss ko na yung binding kahapon, kaya somehow familiar na kayo dito. Ano yung common interaction na dinidiscover or ini-improve sa mga drugs to provide efficient binding? That is intermolecular bonds. In general, are intermolecular weak or strong bonds? Weak, okay. Pag weak, what would you realize? Are they safer agents or drugs or relatively toxic? Safe, okay. Are they reversible or irreversible? Come again? Yes, reversible. Okay, reversible. Good. Pero may case ba tayo na covalent pwede mangyari? Yes. So that's why ang binigay ko example dito, yung hindi masyadong common para additional knowledge sa inyo. For example, melphalan. Melphalan is a drug that promotes strong covalent bond with its target. However, in the case of melphalan, it's not anymore protein but DNA, which is a nucleic acid. Is nucleic acid also a potential target by drugs? Yes, okay. So melphalan is a powerful anti-cancer agent and it forms covalent bond, strong covalent bond with the DNA causing destruction. That's why ang use niya is anti-cancer siya. Okay? Anti-cancer agent si melphalan. Okay? So balikan nyo na lang yung mga discussions natin sa intermolecular bonds sa structure din yun. Important siya to enhance selectivity of action by drugs. So lastly, we have stability. So stability, we have two considerations. Number one, stability after administration and shelf life. Okay? When we say stability after administration, this is inside our body, ay sa loob ng ating katawan. In vivo na siya, in vivo stability. Is the drug stable enough to reach its target? Kasi in some cases, like what I said, the drug could be effective in vitro. Sa labas ng katawan, ang ganda ng resulta niya. But inside the body, because of the hindrances and obstacles, nawawala, nade-defeat na yung action ng gamot. That's why we really need to consider the stability of the drug after it was administered. And of course, shelf life. Ang shelf life important kasi ito ay may kinalaman sa storage ng gamot. Pag improper ang storage ng drug or if not optimized ang storage condition, the drug's action could be reduced. Okay? Pwedeng bumaba. Kaya discuss natin ang dalawang considerations. First, stability after administration. Like what I said, for a drug to be effective, it must be stable enough even after administration to be able to promote its effect efficiently. Kailangan makarating siya sa target site niya. So there are three strategies that can be done, okay, that can be applied to be able to improve the drug's stability in situ. In situ ibig sabihin sa loob ng katawan, normally speaking. Okay? Number one, modifying the structure. Of course, chemistry dictates all. Kaya we can modify the drug structure. O kaya we can make a prodrug. Anong sabi natin sa prodrug? Prodrugs are initially active or inactive. Good, inactive. And then we have using a suitable dosage form. So magbibigay tayo ng iba't ibang examples or i-discuss natin ito individually. Start tayo sa structure modification. Very common. Okay, this is so typical. If there is a drug that is found to be unstable after administration, paglaruan lang ang structure niya. Okay? Paglaruan yung kanyang mga functional groups to be able to resist the potential problem that it could encounter along the way. The main method of increasing drug stability is to modify the structure such that it will become more stable inside the body. So let me give you an example para mas ma-visualize nyo. For example, we have the drug pilocarpine. Are you familiar to pilocarpine or no? No. Okay, so let me give you some insights about pilocarpine. Ang pilocarpine ay isang anti-glaucoma drug. Ay anti-glaucoma agent. Siguro familiar kayo sa glaucoma, siya ay eye condition. Okay? So eye disease siya. With that being said, ang route of administration ni pilocarpine ay through instillation. Ini-instill sa mata. Okay? Ini-instill. Pinapatak siya sa mata. Mahirap magpatak ng gamot sa mata, di ba? Challenging siya at nakakatamad lalo na kung madalas mong ilalagay. Now, balik tayo kay pilocarpine. Ang pilocarpine ay isang anti-glaucoma. Effective siyang anti-glaucoma. Kaya lang, may problema sa kanyang stability after instillation in the eyes. Based on the structure of pilocarpine, meron tayong makikitang essential functional group sa kanya. Okay? Essential for vulnerability. And that is this functional group, this is a lactone ring. Ay ang tawag dito ay lactone. Pag sinabi nating lactone, this is cyclic ester. Okay? This is a cyclic ester. So again, it's your task na to review the functional groups kasi mas marami tayong i-discuss sa structures pagdating ng mga latter topics. So para makasunod kayo, review nyo na yung structure. Okay? Kung ano ba yung ester, ano itsura niya, kayo nang bahala doon. So lactone is a cyclic ester. When you review organic chemistry, ester is an example functional group that can be hydrolyzed. Okay? Na-hydrolyze siya. With that being said, pilocarpine therefore could be hydrolyzed. So what could happen? Kapag in-instill sa mata ang pilocarpine, and nag-undergo siya ng hydrolysis, it becomes inactive already. It becomes inactive. So anong overall implication niyan pag naging inactive ang pilocarpine? So this is how it goes. Nakikinig pa ba? Okay. Imagine niyo tingin sa webcam. Tingin kayo sa webcam ko, sa video ko. Ay, tingin kayo. Pag in-instill ang pilocarpine sa mata, pag nag-undergo kasi siya ng hydrolysis, ang activity ng pilocarpine tumatagalan ng 3 oras. 3 oras lang siya. Okay? So imagine niyo kung 3 oras lang yung activity ng pilocarpine, sa loob ng isang araw, aabot ng 6 na beses o lagpas pa yung pag-i-instill sa mata kasi nasisira agad yung gamot. So ang point is, because of hydrolysis, ang ultimate impact nun sa tao, sa pasyente, lagi siya magpapatak. Nakakatamad ba magpatak sa mata ng gamot? Hassle ba magpatak or mag-instill ng drugs sa mata? Yes. Do you think overall maapektuhan ang compliance ng pasyente? Yes. But to delikado, ang glaucoma ay isang chronic disease that could lead to blindness. So pag hindi nag-comply ang pasyente, pwede siya mabulag. Kaya problema ito. So, anong kailangan gawin? Structure modification. So, medicinal chemists did modify the structure of pilocarpine, and ang nangyari was, again, ang nangyari was in the lactone ring at carbon 2, at carbon 2, they did modify carbon number 2 and it was replaced with nitrogen. Okay, it was replaced with nitrogen. Kaya tingin kayo sa part na to, after replacing nitrogen, or after replacing carbon with nitrogen, that became carbamate analog. And after that, when they tested it, this is already resistant to hydrolysis. So hindi na siya na-hydrolyze. Ay, hindi na siya na-hydrolyze. Question, if resistant to hydrolysis, do you think the drug's action could be prolonged? Yes, less or more compliance? More, very good. So, structure modification is a way to make the drug stable after administration. Are you learning? Okay, next. Stability after administration pa rin. So another way is to make a complex. I make a complex by adding a carbohydrate moiety. So in this case, ang common na ginagamit na carbohydrate moiety is cyclodextrin or hydroxypropyl beta cyclodextrin. This is an example of an oligosaccharide. Okay, oligosaccharide. Okay, this is an example of an oligosaccharide with 6 to 8 glucose units. Okay, so this is an example of an oligosaccharide containing 6 to 8 glucose units. So actually, dual purpose ang complex formation using cyclodextrin because aside from stability after administration, it can also enhance solubility. Okay, it can also enhance. So dual purpose siya. So example ng cyclodextrin complex is thalidomide. Thalidomide currently is being used as an agent that would inhibit rejection of bone marrow and also during transplants after treat or in the treatment of leukemia. Okay, so yan yung complex formation. Overall, tapos tayo sa structure modification. Sa structure modification, again, we have pilocarpine as an example and thalidomide sa complex formation. Next, pwede ring prodrugs. Okay, pwede ring prodrugs. So again, na-discuss natin ang prodrugs. These are initially inactive na after metabolism, na-activate yung gamot. Okay? Example, napakadami natin example but just to have a representative one, we have cyclophosphamide. Cyclophosphamide is also an anti-cancer agent and in fact, this is a prodrug wherein after metabolism of cyclophosphamide, it becomes a phosphoramide mustard which is active alkylating drug or anti-cancer agent. So madidiscuss natin ang anti-cancer sa module 10, sa last module. So sa finals yon. Okay? And finally, I think wala kayo nito. Kakadagdag ko lang nito kagabi. Tama, wala kayo nito? Paki-ano na lang, picturean na lang bago ko i-discuss. Type done if you're finished. Wag nyo lang kopyahin para mabilis. Picturean nyo na lang. Mamaya nyo na isulat. Okay? Nice. So last, under stability after administration, we have suitable dosage form. There are cases wherein the drug is effective. Kaya lang it's not stable after admin. So one way na pwede natin gawin is to modify the dosage form. Example, there are drugs that are formulated in the form of EC or enteric-coated tablet. What can you remember about enteric-coated tablets? Ang enteric-coated, they are meant to disintegrate in the small intestine, di ba? Na-disintegrate sila sa small intestine. They do bypass the stomach. Okay? What's the purpose of formulating drugs in the small intestine? That's because there are drugs that can be destroyed by gastric acid. Okay? There are drugs that can be destroyed by gastric acid. So if destroyed by gastric acid, that could render the drug ineffective already. So it's no longer active against certain diseases or against its certain targets kasi nasira na ng gastric acid. So ang point is, para siyang shield, pinoprotektahan against gastric acid para makatawid na maayos, makarating sa small intestine, doon na lang siya dudurugin. Parang nawala ako. Nawala ba ako? Sorry, teka lang. Nakita ko connection is unstable, sorry. Hindi ata ako nakapagbayad ng net. Pero nag-gets niyo yung discussion, ulitin ko ba? Or nag-grasp niyo naman? Hmm? Nawala ba ako? Hello? Ulit, sige. So, ulitin natin. Okay, balik tayo. Saan nga ulit nadudurog ang gamot pag enteric-coated? Small intestine, very good. So one reason, major reason why drugs are intended to be disintegrated in the small intestine, that is because those drugs can be destroyed by gastric acid in the stomach. Okay? If the drug is destroyed by gastric acid, it will be ineffective already. So nonsense na siya. So kaya ang isang paraan to make the drug be protected at maging effective pa rin siya after admin, that is going enteric coated. So parang shield or barrier yung enteric coating against gastric acid at pagdating sa small intestine, dun pa lang siya madudurog, ready for absorption na bypass ang gastric acid. Okay na? Okay. O yung iba, kamusta? Malapit na matapos. Nandyan pa ba kayo? Ha? Okay. And then, after natin, check natin yung outline na, we are done with stability after administration. Okay? So, proceed tayo sa shelf life. So, when we say shelf life, wala na itong kinalaman sa loob ng katawan, but sa storage condition. Siyempre, determinant din yan if the drug would be effective or hindi. So sa shelf life, this is defined as the time taken for a drug's pharmacological activity to decline to an unacceptable level. Nakakabulol siyang sabihin. To decline to an unacceptable level. So that means shelf life will determine the period of time if the drug is considered effective 100% or hindi na. Okay? Note that there is no universal specification. However, ang recognized is kapag beyond shelf life na, there is 10% reduction of the activity of the drug. Ibig sabihin, pag expired na yung gamot, hindi siya ineffective, hindi siya totally ineffective. Nabawasan ng 10% lang. Okay? Pero syempre, meron tayong connotation na pag expired, oo, nabawasan yung effect, pero you have to note na may kasama yung gamot na mga excipients. And there could be alteration na sa mga structure and effect. Baka maging reactive kasi yung mga excipients, so pwede siya maging delikado na din. Okay? Pero when you focus on the drug itself, reduction lang. Okay? Not invalidation of the effect. Okay? So meron tayong iba't ibang factors that deteriorate shelf life. So number one, we have microbial degradation. Of course, microbial degradation. So to be able to avoid that, we can make dosage forms in the appropriate manner, and then sterility conditions have to be maintained, especially for parenteral formulations, and we can also use antimicrobial excipients. So ano yung mga examples natin ng antimicrobial excipients? Don't worry, may specific module tayo to discuss that. Module 6. Okay, module 6. And then, number 2 possible factor is adverse chemical interaction. Ito yung sinasabi ko sa inyo. Kapag hindi na-maintain ang shelf life, the excipients, di ba ang excipients, pag genuine ang excipients at okay pa sila, dapat sila ay inert. Pero because of not maintaining proper shelf life, lalo na pag beyond shelf life, that makes the excipients reactive, causing problems. So this can be avoided by using suitable excipients and of course, making sure that these are inert in character. And then number three, decomposition by chemical reaction. So this can be caused by external factors like heat, light, oxidation caused by the atmosphere and gases, hydrolysis, and also racemization. So meron tayong tip to minimize that. Syempre, in the form of storage like use of refrigerators for heat-resistant compounds and drugs. For light-resistant, we can use light-resistant containers. For oxidation-prone compounds or agents, we can use airtight containers, and also use of appropriate excipients to prevent unwanted chemical reaction. So in other words, yung mga factors 1, 2, and 3, yun yung pwedeng magpa-deteriorate ng shelf life, yung nasa baba, yun yung mga remedies or recommended ways to be able to address the issue. Okay? So overall, that ends stability. So we were able to mention inside the body and also yung storage niya that is in shelf life. So if we will go back to our mother outline, check natin if we were able to finish our goal. Number 1, are we done with bioavailability class? Yes. Oh, what did we discuss sa bioavailability? Yung 5. Naalala niyo yung 5? Lipinski's rule of 5s. Okay? Sa solubility, dalawa ang na-discuss natin. What is P? Par. Ang tawag dyan? Partition coefficient. And then yung 4 classes. Ano yung 4 classes? Ano yon? Tatlong initials yon. Yung 4 classes. Anong tawag sa kanila yung 4 classes? They are classified under, nawala ba ako ulit? Ayan, so BCS, ay BCS. And then structure, goods na to, na-discuss ko na kahapon yung binding yan, binding groups at binding site. And then stability, that is after admin, so sa loob ng katawan at shelf life. Okay, at shelf life. So pag chinek natin, okay na tayo dito lahat. Kaya overall, end na tayo sa module 4. Okay, check na tayo sa module 4. So kung i-reflect natin, stop ko na yung recording.